Entrepreneurs, hope you're all doing well. Today we have three stories here on the EntrepreNEWS that I want to talk about and relate back to your business, as well as answering your questions, giving Q&A that I will save for the end. So today, let's talk article here. I'm going to pull up on the screen. We're talking about Jeff Bezos doubles time with Blue Origin to focus more on his space company. Now, at first sight, this sounds like, oh, he's doubling his time. Like, how much time is he spending? I'm not really sure. I mean, he has had issues where or people are leaving the company, so it's not been a great time the last couple of months after he launched his rocket with him in it. But Jeff Bezos doubles time with Blue Origin to focus more on his space company. And the key points: Jeff Bezos has long dedicated Wednesday afternoons. That's the day. That's the life-changing, everything that he, believes that Blue Origin is the most important thing he will ever do with his time on this planet. He dedicated Wednesday afternoons to either updates or discussions at Blue Origin. People familiar with the situation told CNBC. In the past month, Bezos added Tuesday afternoon. So when they talk about double, he literally doubled. Even though he stepped down as the CEO back in, I believe it was June of this year, he has doubled his time with the company that he entrusted his life to go up into, I'll put it in quotes, space, and come back down to Earth safely. He has called it his life's most important work. And while demands on the time of one of the world's richest people are high, Bezos now is significantly committing more energy and focus to his space company. So doubling. So why I wanted to bring this up and give a quick shout out to Sonia over there. Good morning. The the So if you were in a situation where you find yourself, I have more than one brand, and you might not even realize that you have more than one brand. You might think, oh, I have these two different revenue streams. They're kind of related, but they're kind of not. That's probably two brands, two businesses that require two sets of amount of time to dedicate your efforts to. And I can speak for it. When I was younger, with the hats behind me here, we had a total of 5 companies towards the end of my tenure there at my family's business, and the time splitting was absolutely needed in order to get things done, right? And when I left there, I ended up starting not just one company, 234 Solutions, which is my consulting and coaching company, but also not long after that, I started Indie PodCon, which ultimately meant that I had 2 businesses that I was operating myself, and to this day am. So we go back to 2014 to now, and I want you to think about how you're divvying up your time when you're putting things in your business, even like micromanaging that time of like, okay, I'm only going to work 30 minutes on updating my website. I'm only going to work 30 minutes on putting some social media posts together. I'm only going to work 30 minutes on this or that or this in the company, and kind of divvying up your time in that sense. Because if you do that, you allow yourself to not have the runaway effect of like, oh, I'm updating my website, so it took all day, it took all afternoon, it took 3 days, and I got it done, right? But in the meantime, everything else suffered because of that, because you didn't plan out your updates, you didn't plan out your time usage so that other things don't fall behind. We are juggling artists. We're constantly juggling the balls of the business and balls of life and the balls of the people and the relationships and everything else that's going on around us. All of that, all at once. And it's really important for us to really focus in, like, okay, so this hour I'm going to work on this, and this half hour I'm going to work on this and that. And the more you can kind of hone in that opportunity for those times, that's where it's going to be opportunistic for you to have the most growth as a whole, and you will actually start to feel like you're getting things done rather than like, wow, I worked 6 hours and all I got done was my website, versus like, hey, I put in a half hour, I got one thing updated, and then I did two, I took the next 2 hours, split that up, and got three other things done. Now all of a sudden I got way more things done rather than something like diving down the rabbit hole of updating your website. And so Sonia asks, in your opinion, was it easier back then for the people to build their business than today? Well, I will get to that question. I will get that question at the end here at the Q&A. So make sure you stick around, Sonia, if you're able to. So let's move on to the next story, which is Ford making fun of Tesla. They mocked Tesla over glass roof problems. And look, like full disclosure, I'm a huge Tesla fan. Hopefully we'll soon be getting one in the next 6 to 12 months. Have a Tesla. But the reason I bring this up is because when Ford made this, they made a statement about there was a Model Y from Tesla that apparently they didn't there was a component missing that didn't have enough sealant installed when they delivered that Model Y. So they had a potential problem. So they seemingly referencing this apparently isolated incident. Palmer noted that such issues would definitely not plague the Mach-E, and that Ford customers would not be required to compromise on build quality. Well, people with glass roofs, well, glass anything, should not be throwing stones. And I there's a big lesson here that I want to point out. So let's see. The bumpers don't fall off. The roof doesn't come off when you wash it. The door handles don't get stuck in cold weather. That's the CEO of Ford saying that. And recently, Ford issued 2 separate recalls in Canada that impacted almost 5,000 Mustang Mach-Es. Those that are electric Mustang, over build quality issues. Apparently, they had concerns of the panoramic roof. Approximately 1,800 Mach-Es are affected by the recall. Now, fast forward, this was on the 21st. If you fast forward to here, to today, Ford is initiating a recall on most of the electric Mustang Mach-E SUVs has sold in the United States since it went on sale late last year due to a manufacturing defect that could allow windshields to detach in a crash. So the lesson here, and this is affecting almost over 17,000, getting close to 18,000. Look at the Teslas either, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I want to talk about is don't be throwing stones, in your glass houses here. You can, try to assure people that, we're the Titan industry, or the Titans in the industry. We are the solid foundation. We are the people that know the best. We've had the most experience, and we won't have these quote unquote, and I say this based on a quote, maybe it was in the other article, teething problems that Tesla has had over the years, that it has grown out of the ground from basically nothing. And with that said, like that's absolute nonsense, right? Companies have recalls all the time. I'm dealing with a recall myself in my car. So I want you to think about it in your business. Let's not throw shade, right? Let's hold each other up, hold each other accountable, and see where it can make the most sense to work together. And just throwing shade is not helping anybody. It's not helping the situation. It's certainly not. I mean, because remember, at the end of the day, people are driving cars. There are people. These are real life people that are getting into these vehicles and driving them. So, throwing shade about things falling apart is not, or in some cases like GM exploding, is not great. And lest we forget, Ford can talk about all these, oh, we won't have teething problems, but let's see, they don't make Focuses anymore, they don't make cars anymore. One of the reasons is because they couldn't get a transmission right. They've been making transmissions for 100 years and they couldn't get a transmission right in their Ford Focuses, that like nearly like bankrupted them, or brought them up to a point where it's like, if we don't do something about this, like we are going to be in deep doo doo because of it. And then ultimately after that, they just cut off the Focuses altogether, the Fiestas altogether, and actually all their cars except for technically the Mach-E is a car, and the Mustang is the only car. But point being is that these types of issues can crop up anywhere. Don't throw shade. Let's work towards figuring out the problems, because it's real people that are either interacting with their companies and or your companies and affected by that. So finally today, let's talk about pivoting for the pandemic. So this article, when was this written? September 22nd. Of this year. Small businesses who pivoted to make masks and sanitizer are still feeling the hit to their bottom line. And there's a quote here. This was a big lesson for me as a small business owner. If ever something like this ever happens again in my lifetime, I most likely will not participate. That is heartbreaking to hear. But there's a lesson here. I wanted to pull out a particular story. I think, where is that particular story at? So Maya had owned a vintage clothing shop on Etsy for 12 years, but when the pandemic hit, the Omaha-based entrepreneur taught herself to sew and set up a second shop called Mod Masks. She struggled with the pricing of her masks, for which she charges about $14 each. I know I can't compete like with stores on Old Navy, and other major retailers that manufacture in China. Even designers like Kate Spade are charging less than what I'm charging. She said that she found a successful niche by sourcing fabric with artsy, esoteric, and or vintage-inspired prints as a way to differentiate herself without having to compete on price. So, ding ding for that, because that is... I think sometimes we get hung up on the idea that price is where we're supposed to be competing, because maybe the people that we're talking with, the customers that we're actively working with to provide a solution for, they're the ones that are, they're price sensitive for one reason or another, right? Maybe the market is the one that has demanded that pricing be the target, right? Whatever it is has become so commoditized. With that said, hey, everything has an opportunity. You look at Tiffany makes a tin can, sterling silver tin can. It's like $1,000 or something like that, and it sounds absolutely ridiculous. But then you click the second image and you say, "Oh wow, look! I could have this really cool looking tin can that's like super sparkly, blah blah blah," and it sits on my desk with my art pencils in it. And yeah, it's like $1,000 tin can, but it looks awesome. And so those are the types of things, like where else are you going to get that level of a tin can? Sure, you could get a normal tin can and scrape all the glue off it and polish it up and everything like that. But, if I got $1,000 burning in my pocket and I need a tin, and I need something to store my pencils and pens in, there's an opportunity right there for you. So that's one side of it, right? So, but when you see here, so in April 2020, Etsy CEO Josh Silverman told CNBC that around 20,000 shops on the platform were selling face masks back in April 2020. Some are now finding that the initial surge of demand they experienced faded more quickly than they expected, particularly after the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced in the spring that fully vaccinated people would no longer be needed to wear masks. So if you might, oh, thanks, Siri. You might find yourself overextending yourself in your business. Now, there's a great story about Vanderbilt and the railroads, and how he started to see like, oh no, we're overbuilding our railroad system across America, and not just him, but I guess his a couple of competitors. It was being overbuilt, so he started to pull back so that he wouldn't be left holding the bag in an overbuilt system that was underutilized, so that the money wouldn't be able to flow in. So I think it's very I think it's always very important for you to be tracking the trends, tracking the news, staying here watching EntrepreNEWS as we go through things. I have a lot more articles coming down the pike for us to review and to relate back to our businesses and how we can be better, how we can be super entrepreneurs in our business journeys, entrepreneurial journeys. Yeah, so I don't allow yourself to get overextended. You might end up with a whole bunch of masks that nobody wants or needs if you don't see and watch the trends and see how things are progressing. And you're just like, no, buy more, get all the fabric, get it up, and hoping for the best that things are going to turn around. And who knows? Maybe we go back to full on mask mandates. And if without another variant that comes through, I kind of tend to think that we won't, except in maybe certain situations in certain areas of the country. And then at that point, there's only so many masks that need to go around, and people already bought literally thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of, millions of masks even. So there's still going to be a market for it, but I mean, I've seen it myself that, the hand sanitizer pump, big pump bottles and stuff, basically like, here, it's $1.50, take it. And it's like, well, I still like to have some in my car. So for $1.50, sure, it's better than paying $20 or the opposite when we were at the beginning of the pandemic, when people were hoarding this stuff and like trying to sell it on eBay, and eBay was shutting down stores and things because the absolute price gouging that was going on was no good for anybody. So yeah, be vigilant about where you're at, where you're going with the business, where the news is headed, where the industry changes are happening, and try to be at the forefront of that and prepare for that, rather than being overextended and having boxes upon boxes of things that nobody really wants or needs for at least for any given amount of time in the future here. So we have a question from Sonia. In your opinion, was it easier back then for people to build their businesses than today? This is a very loaded question, right? So in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. The world was slower back in the day, right? So there was a lot less like instantaneous. There was a lot less marketing opportunities, and a lot less noise to have to compete through. So I think in some ways it was easier back then. But I think now, if you have a really great idea, if you have a great opportunity, if you have a great offer for a very particular niche, I think it's very important that you get hyper niched. If one thing if one thing that the mass media has taught us is everybody has a niche, and there's a TV channel. I mean, while cable, is still a thing, there's a channel for every single person out there, right? And as we get more and more noise, that's where you got to be able to really, really focus in on who am I trying to speak to, what am I speaking of, and how am I going to reach these people? Because there's more opportunities, but there's also way more noise. So I think in some ways it was easier. Thinking back to the days of even before, like the stories before I was even born in my family's business, hearkening back to like that blue and white hat back there. You went and you used the yellow pages. You found the businesses that or you wrote down the names of the trucks that you saw drove by, and you go and you look those businesses up. You go and you make those conversations. Those things still happen. That's still a viable, probably underappreciated method of going to get business versus hey, just do a viral post on TikTok. But as we saw yesterday in the EntrepreNEWS, you can have something go with hundreds of thousands of views and likes and all that stuff, and turn into $3,000 worth of sales. Which, I mean, $3,000 is great in one day, but to me, that the expectations need to be a little tempered there. Pull back a little bit, in the sense that, hey, we're not getting everything. We're not getting the you're not getting like hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales out of that. Just because you have lots of likes doesn't equate to hundreds or millions of dollars in sales, or I mean, in this case, thousands of dollars, literally thousands of dollars in sales in one day. So, I think that while it's easier to get started, there's more resources. There's things like YouTube, and there's things like the Super Joe Pardo channel. I think that it's definitely harder. I think that we have to either become really good at like social media. We have to be good at content, driving content and creating engaging content. So there's the opportunity, but there's also a lot more noise to break through, and that's where niching down. So if you want to learn more, you can go to was it superjoepardo.com/avatar, I think is the link. Yeah, and get my free PDF workbook with 64 questions to identify your ideal client, so that you can really niche in your customer, who that customer is going to be, and make it go that much faster for you, and break through that noise. So I hope that answered your question, Sonia. I appreciate all the questions that we get here on the EntrepreNEWS. It's a lot of fun getting to answer questions off the top of my head, and to go through these articles, these news articles every day. I'm still working to be here 5 days a week, generally 10 a.m. as long as I can. I wasn't able to make it today, so thank you everybody for coming out a little bit later. But I appreciate you. Make sure you smash the like button before you get out of here if you've enjoyed this, if you've learned something. And I will see you all in the next video, which is going to be like over here somewhere. Have a great day.